Alright, so for today's video, we are going to talk about form and space. And generally the notes for form are pretty basic. A form is going to be a three-dimensional object. Now this can be a three-dimensional object that is a physical object that you can hold, or it can be a two-dimensional drawing of a three-dimensional object. Any forms have length, width, and height. Some of them just might have the illusion of those as opposed to the physical. So if I had an actual baseball, that would be a form. If I had a drawing of a baseball, that would also have form. Form that is made by shading, like a drawing, is going to be something like this, where you pick a light source here, you have shadows cast off of it, you use those tricks of shading in order to make a form. You can also have perspective help you make a form. So these line drawings over here all connect to a single vanishing point. There's no horizon line, but there would be. So you can use that to create your perspective illusion. Or you can use shading and perspective in order to create a super realistic sense of space. So that's this one right down here. And believe it or not, a minute in, we're done with one of those notes already. Click the next page. Alright, so now we are going to look at space. Space is literally everything. Everything, everywhere, all over your whole picture or your whole sculpture. Space is all the stuff. Because it's all the stuff, we have two different ways of talking about it because we need to be able to discuss the different areas. The first way of talking about it is positive versus negative. So when you have a very simple image that isn't very deep, you can talk about positive versus negative. Positive is going to be the stuff that you're actually drawing, the point of the drawing, the subject, the figure, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to take this lovely little plus sign. We're going to add that to these cats over here because it says label the icon that represents the area that's colored in black. So right here, black is the positive space. On this side, that means that the black area around the cats is the negative space. If we hop down here, now this picture, it's not flat. There's not just one subject and a blank background. It's got a lot of depth, there's a lot of space, there's a lot of other objects going on. This is when we use foreground, middle ground, background. So F for foreground, that's going to be the part that's closest to me. That's this lioness, that's this path right here, this stuff where I can see the brightest colors, the most detail. That's the foreground. The middle ground is behind that, but not all the way in the back. So this area back here, around this bend here, when I start losing some of these details, I don't see all the individual blades of grass, but it's not quite as faded out as way back here. That's the middle ground, which means the background is this kind of faded, where you have that dulling, that atmospheric perspective fading away your colors as they get far away and harder to see. That part is the actual background. If we click to the next slide, there are a couple of tricks you can use to create a sense of space in your drawing. The first one is going to be overlapping. That just takes advantage of how your eyes and your brain process the world around you. If you are walking down the hall and you see a trash can and then you see your friend and you can't see the legs of your friend, all you see is the trash can, you don't assume your friend doesn't have legs and is just hovering in the air. You assume that the trash can is in front of his legs. Because your brain has figured out that when things are blocked, either partially or fully, by another object, it means the one object is in front. So this one is in front of this one because I can't see the corner behind it. So my brain has processed, if I keep going, I'm going to run into this one first and then that one. It's a safety mechanism that we can take advantage of when we do our drawings. The next thing we can look at is size. Just like with this overlapping stuff, stuff that is farther away gets smaller. It's harder to see. You don't see the objects the way that you would when they are close up. When they're close up, stuff gets much, much larger. You can actually see what's happening with it. So if I have smaller things in the background, larger things in the foreground, that's going to mimic how the world actually looks to our eyes better than if I were to try to put this guy way up in a background and have this tiny little guy in the front. I'm not saying that never happens depending on what your objects are, but in general, this way of small in the background, large in the foreground is going to be your most realistic. Things like details. So if I want to take, sure, let's do this guy. a very complex shape, more detail I can see, is going to look closer than a really simple shape. This one doesn't look as close because this one has more. Oop, I moved it. I'm sorry. Stay place. Again, as things go far away, it gets harder to see. You can't see all the details. You don't make out all the details of your friend's face as he's walking away from you. Or walking towards you, I guess, because if he was walking away, you'd see the back of his head. Unless he's one of those weird people that walks backwards in the hallway, which is dangerous. But whatever, you know what I mean. Similar to detail, color works the same way. So if I take two shapes here, nearly identical, as much as I can do when I do it quickly. If I take one of them and make it a bright, bold neon color, and I take the other one, go to the same color, but I make it, well, I actually want to make it gray, not just darker. These make it darker. I want to go to a custom color. If I go to the green, so it's similar to what that green was, and then I move it into this gray area here, that's making a tone, adding that gray. Click OK. If you notice, this guy falls to the back, this guy tends to pop forward. The last one is converging lines. That is one-point perspective where you have your horizon line and you have something like a road or train tracks or something, or the edges of buildings that show you things going back in space, connecting at that one vanishing point to create your illusion of space using perspective. And those are the notes for today.